Welcome to another episode of Is This for Kids? Fa la 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 la. Christmas edition. I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Sorry, I just interrupted you. Continue.
And we have lots of children, but not together. And this is a great episode of Is This for Kids, where we talk about things that media and other things that you should shield your kids from, shepherd them through, or share with them.
This is
fun. It's a Christmas edition. Can we please have fun? Thank you.
Everything is fine.
And today we're going to be talking about the best Christmas pageant ever. Movie, which is a book in the 70s.
Yep.
Not a new book, right? This is a 70s book. There's only one.
Yep.
And now it has been made into a movie.
Yeah, I read this book as a kid, and a lot of people did. It's a fantastic book. So yeah, it's based on the 1972 novel by Barbara Robinson.
Ooh.
Great.
Thank you, Barbara.
Thanks, Babs. I think she's dead. I don't know. And anyway, it was directed by Dallas Jenkins, a notable director of The Chosen. And it's a story about the Herdmans, who are the worst kids in town, and how they are sort of tricked into coming into church because they think they're going to get snacks. And in doing so, find themselves taking over the town's Christmas pageant. And the town is called Emmanuel. And this Christmas pageant is in its 75th year. This is a big deal. And the usual director of the pageant has broken both of her legs. And so our heroine, the protagonist's mother, decides she is going to direct the Christmas pageant with hilarious consequences. Actually, It's more heartwarming than hilarious.
Heartwarming. Barbara Robinson, born October 24th, 1927 in Portsmouth, Ohio, passed away in Berwyn, Pennsylvania, July 9th, 2013.
Okay, so
lived a long, lovely life and gave us this incredible book.
Yeah.
And awesome movie adaptation.
Yeah, great cast in this. There's Julie Greer. You'll recognize her from, I always think of her as being in 13 Going on 30 is the thing that I know her from. She's the mom. And Lauren Graham is the narrator. That's Lorelai Gilmore from Gilmore Girls, among other things.
Did you know that going in?
No, I didn't. But as soon as I heard her voice, I was like, oh, it's Lauren Graham.
Yeah, I could not tell.
Oh, I could.
But she sounded very familiar.
Yeah, it was great.
I was alone in the theater for this movie. I saw Moana 2 with my children, drove them home, came back, saw the best Christmas pageant ever by myself. Wish that I would have let them see this instead of Moana 2. I'm alone in the theater just crying.
I know. I told you in advance. You were like, you told me you're going to take them to Moana 2. And I was like, best Christmas pageant ever is way better than Moana 2.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. So you had mentioned already.
Yeah, directed by this guy who directs The Chosen.
Yep.
So he's very popular there. And the theater for me was full. But it was full of older people, like my age and older, and which is kind of crazy because this is very much a movie with religious undertones, like that. Yeah. I mean, they're telling a nativity story. We're not doing anything crazy by telling you that they say Jesus a lot of times in this movie. But it came out the first week of November, and I went and saw it the week after Thanksgiving, and so it was still in theaters and still had a very large crowd. It was actually the number 6 movie in its second week, and I think number 10 in its third week being out. And they had moved it back to the beginning of November so that they weren't competing with Red One. But it is doing quite well in theaters, and it is going to be streaming on Amazon Prime, I think.
Yeah. Something I thought was interesting, I looked up I don't always do this, and I honestly kind of hate Rotten Tomatoes unless they want to sponsor us, but it just is. I never see any consistency in their reviews. Like it feels very weird. But I do check it to just kind of see what the average critics are saying, and it got great reviews.
Yeah.
And a lot of the reviews were like, it's a Christian movie, and it's for anyone. And I actually was kind of surprised by that because it's a very Christian movie.
Very.
But it is something that I would show and recommend for anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's one of the conversations that I have for our share section. So I'll wait on it.
For sure.
But definitely.
Well, let's spend exactly 0.0 seconds on
shield.
What is there to shield in this? Nothing.
What do you think? Oh, maybe
come on.
I would say no. It's perfectly fine. When we think of shield, we think of anything that anyone we know might be offended by. And there is some stealing. There is some unkind behavior, some
cigar
stupids, the
smoking.
Kids smoke, but it's like those are known bad kids. So like they're telling you, the first line of the movie is the Herdmans were the worst kids in the history of the world or whatever. And then there are implied swears and actual blasphemy, like they use the Lord's name in vain. So those are the only things that I would.
But they use the Lord's name in vain in the least offensive possible possible way, right? I think the worst thing you could do is GD, right? To a Christian, that's like the worst. Or to say Jesus Christ in an offensive, like in an angry way. But to say like, oh my God.
Yeah.
Is
every
like the
time
least
it's corrected, actually.
Correct.
There's a Sunday school teacher on hand who's like, we don't say that.
Correct.
So it would be a real stretch for me to say that there's anything to shield, but just so we don't have anybody writing us letters that's like, you sent me to see a movie where the kids smoke cigars.
Yeah. It's a 3-second picture.
3 second. It's fine. And it's meant to be funny.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, what about shepherd?
Yeah, so there's a lot to be said in here about judging people. The Herdmans have this is a lot like when we talked about in Free Willy, like we kind of walked away with like, why is that kid such a bad kid? And then when you're an adult, you realize that kid's not a bad kid, that kid's a neglected kid.
Right.
So there's a great conversation to be had in there. And then also like how we treat people when they come into our spaces. And I think that even if you're not Christian and you don't want to talk about this in a church kind of a way, you could say like, okay, well, when somebody comes into your Dungeons and Dragons group and has never played Dungeons and Dragons before, how do you incorporate them? How do you make them feel welcome? How do you, how do we welcome our fellow man into our spaces when they're new? What do you got?
One of my least favorite sayings in the history of the world is that beggars cannot be choosers. I think beggars can be choosers. And what gives us the right to say that if you're not a beggar, that you get to choose, but because you've either made bad choices or by some life circumstance, you end up becoming someone who is homeless, that you don't get a choice in anything. Like I hate that. And I hate that when Christians, when they're doing good works, when they're, especially around this time of year, Christmas, Thanksgiving, and they're doing good, that they kind of look down on the people that they're serving when we are one and we are equal.
Yeah.
And so I think that beggars can be choosers. And in this, there's a great scene where the dad brings a ham to the Herdmans, and the mom's not around. The dad's never mentioned.
Yeah.
And the mom
the
is
Herdman's
just
dad, not
the Herdmans.
Yeah.
And this family brings a ham to the Herdmans, and the oldest daughter, Imogene, has to cook it. Like she's the one who's going to cook it, and they're so excited, and like it's just this beautiful thing. And then they have this conversation in the car where the dad just makes it very clear that this is just what you're supposed to do, and that they deserve this. It's not like we deserve it and they don't, and so we're being so kind by giving it to them. It's that they deserve a nice ham as well, and we're all one. And I think that that's a beautiful message. And probably something that like Christian parents especially have to do a good job teaching their kids and shepherding their kids through this conversation of, we are going to serve people who are less fortunate than us, but we are not better than they are.
Yeah. It belongs to them as a matter of justice.
Yeah.
Yeah. And with the ham, there is a scene at the end. Sorry for burning the movie for you. If you read the book, you got it. They bring the boys, the wise men, the Herdman boys are being the wise men, and they bring the ham back to give to the baby Jesus. And it's this beautiful
heart-wrenching
giving of from their poverty, not from their surplus. This is not extra that they have. This is a thing they absolutely wanted. And when she tries to give it back, she says, no, it was a gift from the boys. Like, oh, it's so amazing. There's so many good conversations to be had about like the right way to behave as a human in the world.
Yeah. And also like a good thing you can have a good conversation about bullying here. So the Herdmans are very mean kids.
Yeah.
But they're very mean kids because they don't have parents. They have nothing.
Yeah.
And it's them against the whole entire world. And that's in most cases, like hurt people. And so it's good to tell your kids, like if they're getting bullied or whatever, if they see it happening and they don't know what to do, to just try to do your absolute best to be merciful to those people and to love those people because they're just hurt.
Yeah. So the share aspect of this, you were talking about the Rotten Tomatoes on this. It is like, when we say that it has positive reviews, it cannot be like, from critics, it is a 91% fresh rating, and from audiences, it's 96.
Wow.
Which is just astronomically high. They have a list on Rotten Tomatoes of the top 100 Christmas movies of all time, and this movie, brand new, is in the top 50. Like, it beat Elf, it beat Spirited, it beat all sorts of other movies.
Wow.
Elf might be wrong, but anyway. But it's in the top 50. Like, it's well received in a environment that's not really like, Christian movies are not usually great. Like, if it's a movie with an openly Christian theme, it's usually a little like, ooh. And people are accepting of this movie and this message. So I'm curious, why do you think that is? Why do you think people are okay with this movie?
Well, I don't know. I can tell you what I think. I think it's because it's a very, very real portrayal of Christianity. So you have this church where you have this like family that is trying their best to be holy, but they're not perfect.
No.
Like the main character mom has some moments where she's like, I don't want them to be in the pageant, but they kind of have to be. And so they're great, but they're not perfect. And you've got the really judgy people in church, which they all exist. And many of us have been that at one time or another. They're there. They're not, it's not this perfect church where everyone there is absolutely perfect. And the only bad people are the herdmans. And they come in, it's like, no, the herdmans are better than most of the people in that church for most of the movie. And then you see like conversion happen in all of them. You see it happen in the herdmans, you see it happen in the other parents, you see it happen in the kids, in the main characters of the kids and the parents as well. So I think that it's being received so well because it doesn't try to be something that it isn't. It's just real. It's a real raw experience of what Christianity can be. And it's a great way, I think, to show someone who might have really bad taste in their mouth of Christianity, who knows nothing about it. I think it's a good movie to share with them, to show them what the meaning of Christmas and the meaning of Christianity really is.
Yeah, I think it's just a really good, pure presentation of what the gospel really is. Like, Jesus came to earth for everyone. It wasn't just for the blonde, blue-eyed, beautiful little girl who can clean up and be Mary, but also the girl that is going to show up in her mom's couch covering kind of throw blanket to be Mary. And the moment when Imogene says, I get to be somebody good.
Yeah.
I was like, oh my gosh.
Tears were flowing.
It was so great. Like, it's just such a good movie, and you can show it to anybody in your life. What age do you think it's appropriate for?
All ages. Absolutely all ages. Better when they're 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, and they can understand what's happening. But this is one of the best movies I've ever seen. Beautiful, pure, funny. I loved it.
Yeah. And specifically, even though the main characters are girls, I think this is a great movie for boys because it is a lot of like rough and tumble, fighty nonsense. And I think that a lot of boys will like it, even if you think they won't. So yeah, any age. But you're right. The sweet spot is right around 7.
100%.
Absolutely. Although every adult that I saw loved it. So it's like 7 to 10 and then anybody over 30. Is gonna love it.
I just hope that the blonde. It's so stupid. It's a mean thing for me to say it that way. But there's a blonde character in the movie who's just obnoxious.
Yeah.
And there's people like her in every church, and I hope that they all go see this movie, and think to themselves like, that's me. Like that's me.
Yeah.
Like you have to be. The pastor does such a great job too. Like you have to be serving especially the people who are most outcast.
Yes.
Not being in your church like this is the way it ought to be. It's just, it was beautiful.
But what's great is at the end that the mom of that character turns around and is overwhelmed by how great the herdmans were.
Right.
So like even she has that moment of conversion.
100%.
Just fantastic. This was a great episode.
It was.
So good. Hey, if they liked this episode and they want to find others like it, where would they find it?
Go to isthisforkids.com. You can find everything that we are doing there. We're very active on Instagram, so make sure that you comment on our Instagram page and our posts and let us know what you want to see in the future.
That's right. Hey, there is just so much content out there for parents to wade through.
I'm Jonathan Beard of Blevins.
I'm Katie, MrsRuvi. Let us help you decide.
Is this for kids?